Good evening, Razorback fans. We are back and welcome into episode 19 of Hawgs on the Hill, your go-to podcast for an in-depth dive into all things Arkansas Razorbacks. Join us as we dissect the victories, analyze the plays, and revel in the spirit of the Hogs. As always, episode 19 is brought to you by Homefield. Step into the legacy of collegiate style with Homefield's premium vintage apparel. Embrace the spirit of your alma mater, or even just your favorite team with their meticulously crafted, comfortable, and stylish collections. Elevate your game day attire and celebrate the rich history of college sports here at Homefield, where tradition meets modern comfort in every stitch. Variety Sports in all caps. Use that promo code and you can get 15% off your first order there. Go check them out. They have a fantastic Razorback collection, or even any other teams you're a fan of. They have several different teams that they're partnered with, so go check them out today. And we'll just jump right in. We missed you on Sunday with the recap show with Austin join us, so just quickly give us your thoughts on the matchup against Auburn, where Arkansas found a way to win this ugly, sloppy game that, I think this was a team that last year's team doesn't win this game.
I completely agree. Obviously, the turnovers were a big factor. I was a little disappointed we weren't able to score more, granted how many times we were gifted the ball. We had our own issues with that and gave it back a couple of times ourselves, and then just didn't have clean execution on every drive. We had some good drives and some bad drives. I thought we ran the ball well. I think that's the one thing we've really been leaning on this year, that we've done well between Jaquindon Jackson and Taylor Green, kind of that combo attack, if you will. And then Braylon Russell had a good game quietly as well. So the run game's looking solid and is very dependable. And then the pass game is just very roller coaster ride, where we have a drive where we hit some good passes, some big plays. Obviously, the big play to Satania for the touchdown was kind of a game changer at that point in the game. But we had plenty of miscues and issues on that side of the ball. Pass protection is not the best right now, and I think that's causing some problems with timing, causing some problems with Taylor being comfortable in the pocket, and that leads to issues, down the line. So get that corrected, get good offensive line play on both facets, and I think we've got the makings to be a really potent team. You can kind of see where this team's got potential to develop too. We just got to clean up the execution to really get to our full potential, if that makes sense. But all in all, really good win on the road in a tough environment to play it. I think Auburn is a team that's really struggling right now to find their identity. I think they can run the ball fair enough, but they're really struggling at that quarterback position. And I definitely disagree with Coach Freeze's statements about them beating us 9 out of 9 times if they play us 9 more times or whatever. I could see them beating us, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they're going to beat us 9 out of 9 times. I think this matchup with them was even enough that the turnover margin is the difference. And to me, that's not, hey, we're going to beat them if we play them 9 out of 9 times. I think it's going to be more of a split. I feel like it's a fairly even matchup. So completely disagree with his take on that. I just had my 2 cents there, but all in all, really glad to come away with a win when we didn't play our best. Obviously, Auburn didn't play their best either, so it's kind of tough to gauge against it. But all in all, still a great way to find a win on the road.
Yeah, I completely agree there. Take your loss and move on, accept the fact that you're a team that don't have a quarterback this year, and, make the best with what you've got. Don't try to come back and turn things around or make it seem better than it is. I mean, just take your loss. Like the head coach you are, and
don't throw your players under the bus as bad as he did either. I think he's going to have some issues come back to bite him with some of the ways he talked about his players too. And I get you got to hold your players accountable for their execution and things like that, and we need to do the same. And I think we do the same. But I don't know, Coach Freeze, he's always been notorious for the way he phrases things, and I think this past week definitely he let loose a little bit. So we'll see where that goes for the Auburn faithful out there.
100%. I think one bright spot in this game, you got to give it up and give credit to Coach T. Will and that defense. They played fantastic on Saturday. You had a couple busted plays, but, you're going to have that in every game almost. But, I mean, what a great weekend for TJ Metcalf, going back home to his home state of Alabama, playing Auburn, a team that didn't even offer him as an in-state guy. And he just, casually goes out there, gets named Defensive Player of the Week. No codes this time. 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, 2 pass breakups, 4 tackles, and tipped the pass that was also resulting in a third interception. So, what a game by him. And I think that's, him starting to step up. We were missing Hudson Clark, Jalen Braxton. So, some of these young guys like TJ Metcalf had to step up in their absence. And I think, you see his development from last year. And I mean, when we do get Hudson Clark and Jalen Braxton back, I mean, this is just another arsenal to that talented secondary right there.
Yeah, he played great. I thought Danico actually played really well too. Danico Slaughter, he kind of had a bounce back game. The previous week against UAB didn't look good at all. So I think he got his sea legs under him a little bit. And I'll say this too: Auburn made a lot of mistakes, but our defense did a good job capitalizing on those mistakes, those poorly thrown balls. Auburn, I will say this: they should have had a touchdown where we got lucky and we were able to force that fumble basically as he was running into the end zone, and we're able to recover that in the end zone for the touchback. And so that's a fluke play that normally does not go Arkansas's way. Let's be real. So the Plains are insane playing at Jordan-Hare Stadium. There's always some craziness that goes on. Sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. More often than not, it doesn't. So that was a crazy play that I thought had a big swing in the game, because that should have been 7 points for Auburn, and things would have been a lot tighter at that point. But being able to steal possession for things like that and take advantage and recover that ball, that's kudos to guys being at the right place at the right time. Obviously, kudos to Metcalf for making that play, not giving up on the play and trying to play a little peanut punch there and get that ball out. So, like I said, Auburn didn't play the cleanest game ever, but I felt like our defense forced some of the mistakes and then took advantage of some of the mistakes that Auburn committed on their own. And that's exactly what you got to do. You can't let those opportunities pass you by to force turnovers and things of that nature. Thought we did a good job on the tip drills. There were a couple of different tip passes that turned into interceptions, so things like that, having your head on a swivel, that is good defensive play that can really make or break ball games. And I thought we did a just fine job of that. And then we got a little bit more pressure on their quarterback. That was something I saw a slight improvement in. It's still probably not where it needs to be. Let's be real. That's still an area I think we need to improve on some more, is defensive line pressure. That's something I've kind of been surprised this year has been as weak as it has been. But it seemed like we had a little bit of progression there against this Auburn team. We'll see if they can continue that against an A&M team that's got a very good offensive line in pass protection, not as much run blocking, but pass protection for sure. They're very stout. So I think getting pressure on Texas A&M's quarterbacks is going to be paramount in this upcoming week if we can continue a little bit of that progress.
100%. And, I think that's going to be big. You saw Davier get in on a sack this weekend. So, hopefully him, Landon Jackson, with guys like him, maybe June Kosh can, help take some of that pressure off Jackson, where maybe they're not necessarily doubling or chipping him every time. That way he can kind of, do what we expected him to do, from last season. So, kind of moving on into this week, we did get some interesting news, I thought, that took, I think, me and a lot of Razorback Nation by surprise. As Sam Pittman announced, Rashad Dubinion has been suspended indefinitely from the team for violating team rules. What those team rules are, I don't know. I haven't really heard any specifics out there, just that, it was announced this week. And, that kind of maybe answers some questions on why we haven't seen him play. We saw him get a few snaps in the UAPB game, and then Pittman said he was dealing with some injury issues. But, week 3 rolls around against UAB. I feel like that's a good game. You can kind of start easing a guy back in. We didn't see him at all there. We've seen Jaquindon take the bulk of those carries. Braylon's been, being eased in. He was up to 9 carries this week. I expect more this week. And then you have Rodney Hill that's, fluctuating in and out of there. So I think that's a very interesting situation going on with Rashad Dubinion.
Yeah, the one thing that I don't like about it is it just affects your running back depth, where if you do have an injury to one of those 3 that you just named, you start to get a little thin. Granted, if everybody stays healthy, that's a good kind of 1, 2, 3 punch with guys that have different strengths and weaknesses that you can. I mean, to me, Braylon's a very, very much kind of a goal line back, but he showed potential, in that Auburn game. He had a carry for, I think, 13, 14 yards where he really, he hit the hole hard, made a couple guys miss, and then absolutely bulldozed the guy at the end of that carry. And so I think he can be an every down back in the future. But when you've got a guy like Jaquindon, there's no reason for him to not get the majority of the carries with the all around back that he is. So that said, I don't like the fact that he's suspended indefinitely, but when you break team rules, there's got to be consequences. So I do applaud the coaching staff for sticking to their guns, if you will, and making sure that the kids respect them and understand what the consequences are of those team rules. There's a reason they're in place. There's a high expectation of the character of a player if you're playing for the University of Arkansas. So who knows what the issue was? I have no idea. But hopefully they get that issue corrected. Whether he can come back to the team or not, I don't know. But there's going to have to be some significant corrections made, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100% there. So if you look at it after week 4, you have Jaquindon Jackson leading the SEC in rushing this season, 472 yards. You have Taylon Green 7th in rushing, 325. So your quarterback and your running back top 10 rushing yards in the SEC. You have Andrew Armstrong 2nd in receiving with 348 yards, and then you also have Green 4th in the SEC in passing yards at 957. So, we have several guys in the top 10 there. You'd love to see another receiver get some more action, from Taylon, and maybe that's just more comfortability in the game. You saw the deep ball that Satania had, so he's got that connection with Armstrong as your go-to guy. Satania's got your deep ball. So, it's getting other guys involved, whether it's Tesla,
I think Tesla needs to get some more snaps over Broden at this point. I like Broden. I like his length, but yeah, and I know there's been some contested catches for him, but there's been some that have hit him like in the freaking face mask. And I know there's a guy on you, but you're 6'6", 6'7", man. You got to find a way to pull some of those in. You can't be, completely wide open with nobody on you every time. Those are the only ones you catch. You got to make some of those contested catches. And to me, that's something that Tesla has shown he can really do. So you lack some of the speed and length there, but I think you have some of the catchability and catch radius that you gain from Tesla, and I'd like to see him get a few more snaps. Maybe the chemistry is just not quite there with him and Taylon like it is with Broden. So I don't know. The coaches know best, so I'll trust them. But my own personal opinion, I feel like Tesla needs some more snaps.
Or at least more I agree there. I was about to say, you see the snaps he's in a few games. He had that big catch in the Oklahoma State game. He had a big catch against UAB. Both those, I believe, were one-handed catches as well.
In traffic. So he's shown he can do it. It just the targets and the routes and the comfortability, I think that's got to come and develop. But maybe closer to the end of the year, you start to see some breakouts from those guys. I think Luke Haas is another prime example of somebody that I think he's doing a fantastic job playing. It's not showing up in the stat sheet, but he's really, really come on as a blocker. He's improved a lot, and you can really see that if you watch him individually on plays he's in. The targets just aren't necessarily coming yet. Pittman kind of spoke to it. A lot of the plays that are called for him to be the main target on, sometimes the pass protection is breaking down too quickly for him to be able to actually get the ball to him, for Taylor to be able to get the ball to him. He doesn't have time to actually even make that read. He's just having to kind of scramble. So if we can get some things corrected, I think you'll see some more plays actually go to these guys where Taylor can actually make, his first, second, third read and maybe get the ball out to a guy like Tesla who is open. He just needs the time and the comfortability in the pocket, I think, to kind of stand his ground. I'd like to see a little bit of improvement there as the season goes on.
I was about to say, you read my mind there. I was going to talk about how, Pittman addressed that in the press conference, saying, he's doing great blocking. He said he's better than he was last year as far as his overall game. He said it's just that pass blocking's breaking down too soon, and, he's not able to run his route, and, by that time, Taylon's already getting flushed out of the pocket and having to run. So hopefully if we can see those improvements in pass protection, then, we can see Luke Haas start getting on the stat sheet, because, he can be explosive. We saw that during the Oklahoma State game, a deep pass up the middle and he takes to the house. So, I mean, at some point you've got to almost force feed him the ball that, he's a talent that you've got to utilize, and we've got to figure that out.
I think it's coming. I think it's just, there's a lot of new players on this team, a lot of new scheme on this team, a lot of new terminology on this team. Everybody's you can learn a lot in practice, but it really does take in-game scenarios to really build the true timing and true comfortability. And I think we're still having those growing pains. And honestly, I think we're going to have them pretty much all season. It's just how much can we improve on those issues as the season goes on and get better and better and better each week. I've kind of seen it all year, similar to what we talked about. Alabama last year had a horrible start to the season, ended up being a, playoff caliber type team by the end of the year. I don't know if we're going to have that level of delta, if you will, but I think we can get better and better each week. I think you're already seeing it, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Had a slight regression, in my opinion, against UAB, but I think it was because we were overlooking them. Overall, I thought we played well enough against Auburn in a tough environment with an ugly, sloppy game. We found ways to make some plays, and so that was good. But got to continue that progression on both sides of the ball if we're going to really have a good year and compete in all of our games towards the end of the year where the competition does get pretty tough. I mean, even after this week, you play Tennessee, your competition level goes from 0 to 100 or 50 to 100 at least, real quick. So you got to keep improving at a pretty exponential rate.
Yeah, I agree 100% there. It's like one of those things where, and I don't know if it makes a difference or not. Pittman spoke about how for the Auburn game, they amped up the physicality of the practice from the week before because guys were a little bit healthier. And I think that maybe made a difference. Don't know how much of a difference it made, but that could be part of it as well.
Very true.
So we're going to switch things up here a little bit. We are going to go ahead and jump to our Week 5 preview with Texas A&M down in Dallas in Jerry World, the last matchup we're going to have here. And we've got Agnox joining us to help give us a preview of this Texas A&M team. Welcome in. How are you doing?
What's up, guys? How y'all doing?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Glad to have you on tonight. Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to join.
Yeah, so, this is one of these long-standing series we have, and this is the last year going in, kind of looking at it. What is your perspective of, how your guys' season has gone so far compared to kind of expectations and then, looking forward to this matchup?
Well, it's like the 4th or 5th season in a row where our quarterback got hurt, right? So just another weird situation. Thankfully, Marcel Reed has looked competent in his time as the starter. We'll see if that continues this week, if he ends up taking the start again. I think the Notre Dame game was really deflating because of how Connor played, but now looking back, it makes a little sense because he had the shoulder injury. So, we're looking for growth, right? Like it feels different than the Jimbo years with Elko. It feels like there's a lot more potential here and a lot more grit and toughness in the team, but it's tough to tell.
Yeah, so it's definitely. Oh, sorry, Caleb. I was about to say it's definitely kind of early on in his tenure. And then just the way the college landscape works nowadays. I mean, obviously Sam Pittman's been at Arkansas. I think this is his 5th year, and this team that we have feels completely brand new. Got a couple new coordinators in Petrino and our offensive line coach, Coach Mateo. So that brought some newness, obviously, to the offensive side of the ball, but then just the players as well. I mean, there's so many different names on our team between our quarterback, running back, a lot of the guys on the offensive line. There's several guys back on defense and several guys back in our wide receiver room. But this team for Arkansas feels completely different as well. A lot of different growing pains. And I know you guys are going through the same thing down there. So I do think this is going to be a good matchup for both teams to try to show some progression. We were just talking about it, you look at teams in nowadays collegiate atmosphere, you can start out not that great and end up having a really good year. You look at Alabama last year, obviously that team's loaded with talent, but they started out the year pretty rough, pretty rocky, didn't look the best. By the end of the year, they were a playoff caliber team, in my opinion. So that's what needs to happen for these types of teams to succeed in this day and age where you've got so many new faces. I mean, we've got 50 plus transfers on our team. I know you guys are kind of in that same boat. So I think it provides a level of competition that's kind of on the same playing field, if you will, week in and week out. You never know exactly who's going to step up a level each week and show some improvement over the previous week, with game time, atmosphere really providing some of that development for these players. You can get a little bit in practice, but that chemistry really does come in the games, and with teams being new, each year, kind of. I think it makes these matchups a little bit more fun, a little bit more meaningful this early in the year. So this is a big matchup for Arkansas. I know it's a big matchup for A&M as well.
Yeah, definitely. We're excited. I mean, we want to continue the domination that it has been Southwest Showdown out in Jerry's world. We're going to miss KJ Jefferson. Definitely had a lot of fun watching him play for what was he the quarterback for like the last 5 or 6 years? Jeez.
At least 4. I think he was a backup under Felipe Franks back in like Pittman's first year. I think that was his freshman year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that might have been a red shirt freshman year because I think he was here at the tail end of the terrible Chad Morris years too. So.
I think you're right. I think that was his true freshman year, and then he was a redshirt. Man, he was around for a long, long time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be weird with the new guy, so we don't know what to expect.
I was about to say, either. Yeah, that's true. I mean, he has some similarities, and he likes to pull it and run, and can run the ball really well. I think the thing that there's a lot of unknown for us is we're wanting to see that development in the passing game, and I think that's going to be a lot of determining factors in this game. Is how well can we throw the ball, but also with the success we've had running the ball. Jaquindon Jackson leads the SEC in rushing yards and has 8 touchdowns on the season. It's like, can we continue that success, or are we going to be forced? You guys have a great defense, big defensive line. So, it's going to be one of those things. Do we see pressure forcing Talon to throw the ball more with you guys loading up the box to stop Jaquindon?
Well, we've struggled against the run all year, so I think you will see us load the box up, especially in a game like this where you guys have done pretty well on the ground all year. So, yeah, we're interested to see it too. I mean, this is a big measuring stick game for both teams.
Yeah, 100%. So going in this game, you hinted on it a little bit. From an Aggie perspective,
yeah,
are you guys kind of over the Connor Wegman experience and kind of ready to move on? Like, is Marcel Reed kind of the next man up? Or do you still think Connor Wegman can become that next guy for you guys?
I think Connor's still the QB1, and I don't think that Marcel's going to overtake him due to injury until Connor plays his way out of it. Like, Marcel's proven that he can come in and be a guy who can win us games, yes, but he also struggled a little bit against Bowling Green. He's missed some reads. He's missed some throws. He's a little raw. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman. He looks like he's going to be our future, but we know that a healthy Connor could be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. I don't know what I was about to say.
You're good.
But, I mean, look, Connor, do I think he's going to play this week? No. Do I know that for a fact? Maybe. But I think at the end of the day, Marcel gives us a good shot because he's a dual threat. He kind of looks like a mini Lamar Jackson type. We just want to see him have that consistency in the air. It's very similar to what you guys were talking about with your quarterback.
Yeah, I was about to say, when you look at it so far at the start of the season, between Marcel and Connor, that, very similar as far as, passing percentage, just because he hadn't played as much, Connor has less, passing yards. But like you said, it's going to be interesting to see, like you said, once he's healthy, can he get back to where, we saw those flashes, over the last year or so?
We were huge proponents of Connor coming into the season, which is why it was so shocking and degrading to see how he played against Notre Dame. We still think he can be that guy, but at this point, there's just too much evidence of he hasn't been able to stay healthy. So obviously availability is your best ability when it comes to playing football, especially quarterbacks. So, we'll see where we land. Hopefully he gets healthy, and by the middle of the season, he can step in and be the guy we thought he could be. But right now we're riding with Marcel. So
I was about to say, that's kind of what, my opinion has been, with Taylor Green. You look at him, the previous 2 games, 17 carries, 18 carries. And, Seth and I've talked about it. We don't see that as feasible, especially if you're wanting to keep him healthy. I mean, heck, last week you had him hurdling guys and taking those hits. I don't know if that's the smartest move. And then times you see him slide. So it's weird to see his decision-making on when he wants to, let me just try to hurdle this DB, or let me just take the slide here. And I kind of understand that if we want to have success, he's a guy that we've got to keep healthy. And, that's some of the worrisome things on my end. And, you have him rushing nearly as much as your running back. He's going to take those bumps and bruises along the way.
Yeah, this is the new age of football, is adapting to that like controlled chaos of having a quarterback who's athletic and should be used that way, and can be used that way to the benefit of your team. But it's like it's always a risk. You're kind of gambling with how much you're gonna try to utilize that part of his game.
Yeah,
That's a great
100%.
point.
And so, as you mentioned availability a while ago, and so talking about availability for this game, Arkansas is kind of expecting to get a couple of its cornerbacks this week with Jalen Braxton coming back from dealing with some tendonitis issues. Hudson Clark is looking like he could be back after some have some back issues after the Oklahoma State game. A couple other guys that not big names that are going to be out for us. But then you flip over the flip side for you guys, kind of looking at the report here that came out. I believe Naboo is the guy that your offensive lineman that got knocked out for the season, correct?
He's out for the year, yeah. And his backup, TJ Shanahan, was the next center up, and he's not playing in this game either. So I don't know how long he's going to be out, but yeah.
That's tough, man.
Yeah. I was about to say, and a couple other guys listed out for you guys is running back Ruben Owens and DB Tyreek Chappelle. Are those guys that are out for the season or expect to be back at some point?
No, these guys are all out for the season. Ruben Owens was going to be our stud running back, and like tore his ACL or broke his leg. I forgot what it was in training camp. So, Naboo out for the season after Notre Dame. Shanahan, who stepped in really well and was really dominating up front, played phenomenally in replacement of Naboo. Last game, he got injured, didn't look great. I think they brought the stretcher out. Everything else. When we're looking at the injury report, you see Bryce Anderson is probable. That would be the one guy that I'd be concerned about not playing, but it looks like he's ready to go.
Yeah. And then also it looks like they got Anaya White, your defensive lineman. What is it looking like for him possibly?
It looks like a toss-up right now. I know for a fact, not for a fact, I'm pretty fairly certain that Connor's not going to play, and it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors right now. As far as Anaya White, they've got a good rotation of guys there. It'd be awesome to see him run, but we just don't know.
Yeah. Kind of looking at some of the other pieces on your guys' team, it looks like you have Cyrus Allen, your leading wide receiver, 10 receptions, 181 yards on the season and a touchdown. Noah Thomas is kind of right up there in receptions, 78 yards. Are these two guys that you guys are looking to kind of break out or kind of be those go-to targets for, whether it be Connor later down the road or Marcel, in the games that he's going to be in?
I think they would want Noah Thomas to be like the Mike Evans type of guy, but nobody's separated themselves to this point. So when we're playing offense, it really just feels like it's a unit moving the ball forward. Whoever's going to get the ball, whoever's going to get open is the guy, and no one's been like this superstar playmaker yet. But we keep on talking about the freshman Terry Boosie, who came in as an athlete, was going to play corner this year. They moved him to running back after Ruben Owens got injured, and he's shown some flashes. He gets the ball a few times a game. We think that at some point it's going to pop and he's going to have a crazy game. So that's the dude I would watch for.
It'll be against us. Don't you worry. Somehow there's always a funky way that happens.
Yeah.
I'll never forget.
You got it.
Sorry, I was about to say I'll never forget that play. I think it was year before last. KJ trying to dive, play Superman from the 3-yard line, fumbles it. You guys return it all the way to the house. Seemed like our entire season went to shambles after that one play. It's like it affected our whole season. It was crazy, but
it's been a super crazy, memorable series of games at Jerry's World. Like, not 100%. All of them have been. I mean, especially for you guys, not super fun. But at the end of the day, like we can think back and be like, oh, I remember this game against Arkansas. I remember this year against Arkansas. We had all these double overtime games, these crazy comebacks, like these crazy plays, wacky things that happened. So it's been fun. We're gonna miss it.
Makes for great memories. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, as much as we're going to miss it, a lot of Arkansas fans, and I'm sure you guys as well, are ready to see that transition back to the home and home, which it will next year. So, that's going to be another interesting dynamic. Each team gets, whether it be, depending on the year, an extra home game at home instead of playing at neutral site location. Looking at it, a guy I wanted to ask about that you've kind of seen it uptick in his carries a little bit as the seasons went on. How do you guys feel about EJ Smith? Do you think he's a guy that can come on and be a top back for you guys in the future? Or, I know you've got Le'Veon Moss that's been your go-to guy so far this season, but I think throughout the season we've seen EJ Smith get a few more carries game by game. What's your thoughts on him?
He's still below Amari Daniels. And Amari Daniels is the most average, steady going running back. Like if you need 3 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. If you need 5 yards, he'll get you 3 yards. So EJ Smith, I know they've tried to get him into the mix, and it's been a lot of committee stuff, but I don't think there's a lot of movement there. I mean, hopefully, obviously, he's royalty, Emmitt Smith's kid. We want him to get to that level, but so far we haven't seen it. Who knows? There's these 4 guys at running back that they rotate in, and I think the 2 most dangerous are going to be Le'Veon Moss and Terry Boussey.
I've heard that Boussey kid. He's a freshman, isn't he? He was the number 1 athlete out of that class a year ago. Yeah. I've heard dangerous things about him that, to your point, he's 1 game away from just exploding onto the scene.
The whole time leading up to the season in practice, they were like, holy shit, this kid is about to explode and he's way beyond his years. Yeah. So we're just waiting for something to happen. Just get the ball in space and hopefully he can take off.
Yeah. So kind of as we wrap up here, do you have any specific projections on this game? They've got you guys favored by, last I saw, it was like 3.5. Just from what you've seen from your team so far going into this game, what are you thinking?
Well, I think it's tough, right? Every time we're confident, we lose. Every time we're not confident, we play well. That's been the curse of Agnox. We've made jokes about it every time. So we're very even keeled at this point. Last week, it wasn't the most, encouraging performance against Bowling Green. But I also, when you take a step back and look at Bowling Green, that's a better team than people give them credit for. And it's tough to say if you haven't watched them because you just look at the logo and you're like, oh, what are they talking about? I mean, they took Penn State to the woodshed. They almost beat them. They almost beat us in Kyle Field. They looked very well coached, very strong. They had a really solid quarterback. I don't know. It feels like that team is going to run the table in their conference. So I think it was a good test for us. I think it kind of got us ready, got us focused. And I know Elko will have them ready to go. I don't know from y'all's standpoint how you feel. It's just one of those things like going to Jerry's World year in, year out. I mean,
it's almost a coin toss, man, with who's going to play better that week.
Yeah, if the coin had one side that was landing on heads 90% of the time.
That's fair.
No, but
as far as the wins go, that's true. We've always been good at somehow playing good for 3.5 quarters and then just absolutely blowing up there at the end. I think there's been a handful of games you guys have absolutely beat the dog water out of us, but it seems like there's always been some close, memorable games that we found a way to lose to you for sure. No, which you guys have found a way to win. You got to give yourself some credit on those. But I'm not going to lie, man. I had you guys picked to play a lot closer against that Bowling Green team. We do like an SEC pick 'em each week. And that was one I had circled, not for you guys to lose, but for them to cover the spread because they are a sneakily better team than a lot of people give them credit for. I expected them to play y'all close, and that's exactly what happened. But I'll say I'm glad you guys came out on top. I don't wish ill on anybody, especially if we do have the good fortune of beating you. Makes us look a little better, maybe if your record's a little better. So, anyways, I think this is going to be a great matchup. Hopefully, it's one for the record books and to remember as it's being the last one in Jerry's World. But truly, to your point, I just don't know how to feel about this game with both teams having so many question marks. I mean, I like our team. I still got a lot of questions that we feel like we need answered. Our run blocking on our offensive line has improved tremendously compared to last year. Our O-line last year was just horrendous. And we've got 3 transfers that came in that have picked up the bulk of the starts that have really helped things out. A new center who's helped things out communication-wise with Taylor Green. I think they've got some good chemistry going on there, but our pass protection has been mediocre at best, in my opinion, and that's really hindered our pass game. So we're a little one-dimensional right now. I think there's the potential for us to have a very good team. Our defense has been decent at times, but also shown some problems in coverage and different packages and things where they've had some missed assignments. So looking to clean that up too. But I think everybody's kind of in the same boat where no one's really playing up to their like full potential right now. I don't feel like. I mean, you even look at Georgia a couple weeks ago, about lost the game against Kentucky, and in my opinion, Georgia is probably the most complete team in the SEC. Texas is way up there too, but I mean, I think Georgia's just as complete, and they found a way to really have an ugly game. Granted, they won it, but that's a prime example, with the way teams are nowadays. It's just, can you come out and execute clean ball? And if not, can you weather the storm of whatever issues you have?
Yeah. And I think everything for us is going to hinge on if we get good Marcel Reed or bad Marcel Reed. Is he hitting? Is he finding his reads? Is he comfortable? Is he able to get out and run a little bit? So it's all going to come down to that. But I'm surprised that y'all haven't mentioned the Bobby Petrino revenge factor here. Because Jimbo locked him in a closet for the entire last season.
Yeah. I don't know how sore the feelings are down there on that. We're glad to have him back. And I think Coach Sam Pittman's letting him run wild and completely control basically every facet of the offense, which is good. From our understanding, I think Jimbo and him didn't – I'm not saying they didn't see eye to eye, but I don't think Jimbo let him implement his terminology how he wanted to. And so everybody was trying to play this like mixed, muddled up game of offensive play calling, and it just didn't work. But yeah, you guys probably know more about that than us.
He turned off Petrino's headset. Jimbo just brought him in for the optics. It was wild. We were all excited that the offense was going to change, and it didn't change a lick. It's no hard feelings at all. I mean, we wanted Bobby P to go free and be able to run his offense somewhere.
Not gonna lie, man, we were terrified whenever that hire was announced last year, because we've seen firsthand the lethality of Bobby Petrino's offenses if he's got really good players, which you guys are notorious at recruiting really good players, and we were terrified. But I think if y'all had any other head coach that would have allowed him to do his thing, I think things would have ended differently. But that's a conversation for a whole nother time.
Yeah, so we appreciate you joining us. I know you got to get out of here, but before you do, let everybody know where they can find you guys at to get some insight on you before Saturday gets here and it's game time down in Jerry World.
Yeah, Razorbacks, Hog fans, we are Agnocs. We try to take a fun stab at covering the Aggies. Try to kind of lean towards being a little bit, goofy. We make fun of other teams. We try to get into fights with people on Twitter. You guys have probably seen some of our posts making fun of Sam Pittman's massive honkers or Bobby Petrino's scandals, but we've got a lot of content coming. We're going to poke some fun at you. It's all in good fun. We're excited for this last matchup in Jerry's World, and good luck, guys.
Appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks for your time.
That was Jack with Agnocs. We appreciate him coming on to talk Aggies in this matchup. Like you said, you can almost throw everything out the window when it comes to this matchup every year. It's almost like I always talk about with the LSU matchup. You throw records out the window. You can throw however well we've been doing the rest of the season out the window, and you never know what you're going to get. And I mean, you saw that last year.
That way with Ole Miss too. I don't know, something about those teams. Doesn't matter how good or bad we are, or how good or bad they are. Somehow there's always good competition.
I mean, last year was a perfect example of it, how bad we were. We played LSU to 3 points at their home field. So
had a shot to win. I mean, frankly.
Yeah, 100%. And so, we had that preview. Like you said, he's expecting Marcel Reed to go. Connor Wegman listed as questionable. That could be a smokescreen. Mike Elko did say he's not going to reveal that starter until game time on Saturday. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. Like Pittman said in his press conference, he's not too worried about it. He doesn't think it will affect how, they game plan strategize defensively for this game. So I'll be interested to see that. We got the preview out of the way. We'll jump back to cover some of the other things that we did not get to talk about so far. We'll jump back up to basketball, where, we mentioned last week Arkansas has that exhibition matchup against Kansas coming up in October. Well, over this past weekend, while the football team was on the road getting a win at Auburn, you had Cal hosting 2026 five-star Micah Murin on an official visit to Arkansas this past weekend. And he is a guy that's, a heavy favorite to potentially reclassified as 2025. That could be a big get for Arkansas next year, along with some of the other recruits that we've got coming in. I mean, Is this just do you think this could be quote unquote the Coach Cal effect starting to, take shape here at Arkansas?
I think it's already happened, man. I mean, let's be real. We were getting some good recruits on campus for visits and things like that with Musselman. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he did a fantastic job of recruiting, but I think Cal brings it to another level. The amount of five-star interest we've been receiving and guys that we're getting to come at least visit campus, not necessarily commit yet, but there's been several guys visit, several guys commit that are in that five-star McDonald's All-American type category. It's kind of crazy. We're not really used to it. We thought the Nick Smith, Anthony Black, Jordan Walsh class was like the best we've ever had. I think there's potential for Cal to match that year in and year out nearly. I mean, that's kind of the way it's looking, which is just absurd to think about. But there's at least potential for that to be in that type of class every single year. So this is awesome to see. I mean, it's like every time we turn around, there's new breaking news coming out of our basketball program of somebody visiting, somebody trying to flip, somebody that's gained interest that we weren't originally on their list or something like that. So 100% the Coach Cal effect. We are a good program. I don't think we're that level of a program. I think Coach Cal brings a lot to the table, and that's exactly why we went out and hired him.
100%. And you also saw the announcement that came over the past couple of days where Cal officially announced that last spot on the coaching roster there. Tyler Eulis, former player that played for him at Kentucky, is joining his staff here at Arkansas. I think that's going to be a great guy that can come in and, really help relate with these kids and recruits that are coming in. Would be like, hey, I played for Cal. Here's what you can kind of expect, what he's going to demand from you guys, but also be able to tell them how much wealth of knowledge and how much it can benefit them to come in and play for a guy like Cal, having that firsthand experience.
1,000%. I thought this was awesome get. Eulis has always been a guy that's got good basketball knowledge. There's a reason he was such a phenomenal point, even though he was undersized, frankly. He was sharp. So I think he brings, another added layer. There's going to be plenty of former players, whether they were Cal's former players or whether they were Arkansas former players, to provide a lot of insight on how to get to the NBA, how to hold yourself to a high standard from a personality and character standpoint. I think those guys that he's got in that staff have a ton of character, and I think that'll help this team as well, on the court and off the court, both. So those are good things in my opinion, but just the basketball knowledge that he's surrounding this team with just from the coaching staff is on a different tier. I'm not sure any other program can compete with the amount of former basketball players, basketball professionals, whether they were coaching in the professional league or if they were playing professional ball, whatever the case may be. I mean, there's a ton of basketball knowledge on this team just in the coaching staff. So that's going to be beneficial no matter how you slice it from any angle. So I thought that was a great hire, somebody that can bring, some young, fresh energy that's, not too much older than the players that are on the roster. So I think that'll be kind of a good thing to have.
Yeah, 100%. There was a lot of rumors that that's what was going to happen, and now we have an official announcement there. So, that's good to see. As we continue here, one of the teams for Arkansas that has the most fire behind them. Let's talk Arkansas soccer, man. We got them to come back after a quick stretch off, a little bit over a week. They took on LSU on September 19th, won that close game 1-0, and Arkansas opened up conference play with a victory. Bella Field netted that game winner for Arkansas in the 71st minute, the fourth goal of the season for her. You had freshman goalkeeper Keegan Smith record 3 saves to pick up her second solo shutout of her career, and Arkansas finished ahead in shots 12-9.
Yeah, and that was a big matchup to start your SEC season off correctly. A little closer than we wanted it to be, but LSU is not a bad club, and I think we did a good enough job on the defensive side of things, preventing just a ton of shots. I think they did fairly well preventing us from getting just a ton of shots. 12's decent, but it's not quite what we've been used to seeing, if you will. And so this was definitely a defensive battle. It's nice to come out on top and start your season off right and kind of hang on to that number 3 spot and flex your muscles a little bit.
Yeah, couldn't agree more there. And then, 3 days later, we turned the offense back on as they took on Missouri. at home for the second SEC matchup of the season, and they won this one 8-2. Arkansas 6-goal win ties the program's largest over an SEC opponent. And you had some of these, young, talented freshmen step up with freshman Anaya Robinson. She opened up scoring in the 5th minute of the game and scored her 6th goal of the season. You had Mackenzie Malum scored on the 2nd goal of the match in minute 19. Kate Doyle followed that up 2 minutes later, put Arkansas up quickly 3-0, 20 minutes into the game. You had Ava Tankersley added a goal of her own at the 30-minute mark. Kylie Delaney scored for Arkansas at the 40-minute mark. That put Arkansas up 6-0 after Jalen Brownlee added a goal in the 43 minutes. And then Ava Tankersley and Mackenzie Malum both score in the second half, giving them each a brace, meaning 2 goals in the game, one short of a hat trick for both of them. And, after this matchup, Arkansas has an NCAA leading 44 goals and 49 assists on the year.
Yeah, that's unheard of, man. I don't even think we're that far into the season, and our offense is explosive, and that's even having a game where you only scored 1 goal against LSU. So if you put up 3 or 4 more there, I think this is just an even crazier number. But overall, you can't ask for a better start to the season for Arkansas soccer. I don't see how it could be much better than what they've done. Obviously, there's always room to improve, but they're firing on all cylinders at the right time. I just hope they can kind of carry this momentum, this offensive firepower, and then the good defensive play on the back end as well. It just all facets of the game have looked pretty good so far. I think they've got potential to get even better as some of these freshmen really get integrated in. There's a couple transfers that are integrating in quite well too. They build more and more chemistry. This team's scary. I mean, there's a reason we're number 3.
100%. And after such a great weekend, you had Ava Tankersley named SEC Offensive Player of the Week. And just today, she was named to the TDS National Team of the Week. So Tank's out there doing big things again for Arkansas. And
didn't see the new rankings.
Yeah, I was about to say, we were number 3 there, but now Arkansas is ranked number 1 by Top Drawer Soccer and number 2 by United Soccer Coaches, which is the highest ranking in each of those specific polls in program history, which is insane. They have set the bar this season, like Seth said. They've just came out and, just showed absolute domination so far this season. They'll continue that tomorrow night on the road as they go to Nashville to play Vanderbilt before they come back home on Sunday. But, like you said, this team is, it's almost as if they're out for blood this year. Kobe Hill has got this team firing on all cylinders. And like you said, there's still room for improvement.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I'm not going to lie. The only thing that I hope is that we don't have some type of regression. There's always potential for that too. You kind of get too hot too early and then fade off, at the end of the season. That's terrible timing. We've seen it happen in other sports before. So hopefully they can continue that momentum and just keep on building as the season goes on. They're primed to have probably the best season in soccer that Arkansas has ever had. And I really hope that comes to fruition. I think all these girls, especially Ava Tankersley, somebody's been there for a little while, they deserve it. They've put in a ton of work to make this team what it is. And obviously Coach Colby Hill has put in probably the most work. And it has really got this team in a different spot than it's been over the last couple of years. This is a very special team and the fans are supporting it in tremendous ways. And I think it's just a domino effect that just is going to continue to rise and reach exponential new growth. So a lot of things to be excited about if you're a soccer fan.
100%. Couldn't agree more there. You love to see that, especially, this women's soccer team. They, like you said, they work hard, and also we talked about how well succeeding or how much success women's sports here have had so far, especially if you look at soccer and softball. Basketball's got a little bit of work to do, but on those two facets, it's just insane. And you even talk about what we're going to talk about next, Arkansas volleyball. They made that tournament run last year as well. And, they're continuing to improve as well. And, they had a match on the road at Miami last week where they unfortunately lost 3-0, bounced back against FIU, winning 3-2, beating Texas Tech 3-1. And they actually open up SEC play tonight. It actually just, got underway as they were playing Georgia at home tonight. That got underway at 8 o'clock. So we'll have the results of that for you guys next week. And so, hopefully they continue to have some success there and, make another tournament run this season.
100%. They're another team that's kind of on the rise, in my opinion. They've had some good years in the past. I think this team they've got is potentially even better. A couple question marks, but I think they're really getting their stride figured out too. They've had some really, really good showings so far. Tough loss against Miami, but you're going to have those from time to time. The soccer team's going to lose a match or two. Let's be real; it's going to happen. There'll be games that we just don't play quite as well, don't defend as well, and just our shots don't hit. That happens. So everybody, hold on to your britches when it does. We'll bounce back. I think that team's got tremendous potential to shake off a loss, no problem. So. Both of these women's sports, though, are doing quite well. And then, like you said, overall, women's sports as a whole at the University of Arkansas have done nothing but improve over the last 4 or 5 years under the coaching staffs that we've got outside of maybe women's basketball. That's an area that needs some help. But all in all, women's sports are doing good things at the university for sure, especially track and field.
Absolutely. You can't leave them out whatsoever.
No, sir.
And so, here's an interesting question, as we shift focus back to football, with a big matchup this Saturday. Pigpen poses a good question here. If we win Saturday, do we get to keep this Southwest Classic trophy forever?
Is my understanding that it's still probably going to be termed the Southwest Classic, very similar to like LSU's the Battle for the Golden Boot or the Missouri's the Battle Line Rivalry, whatever it's called. I'm still not used to that one, even though it's like 9 years running, whatever. It feels weird still. I'm still not sure about it. But anyways, I feel like this trophy could stick around. Maybe it might be named something different. I don't know if those naming rights are tied to Jerry's World for some reason or something along those lines. I'm not sure the ins and outs of that, but I would like to see this trophy stay around. I don't know if it's something that is going to be I don't really know the terminology here. If it's going to be riding on if we play A&M every year or not, I'm still not for certain on exactly which teams we do play each year and which ones are going to be rotating. I don't know. So I think that might have a little bit of contingency on it as well. But I'd like to see this trophy stay around. Let's be real. That there's some great history around this trophy. Any game that's got a trophy along with it just, to me, adds a little bit of flavor and a little bit of spice to that game. Just like the LSU game, just like the Missouri game, and obviously any bowl game, getting some hardware at the end of it's always fun. So I would like to see that stay around. I don't think it'll be something if we do win, we keep it forever. I'm hoping it's still up for grabs the next time we play them. That provides some more incentive and a little bit of spark, I think.
Yeah, as cheesy as it is, like you said, those trophy games, it almost means more. So,
oh my God.
Let me pose you a question here that I was thinking about talking about with some people. Say Arkansas goes in, gets the win here. You're heading back home 4-1. You got Tennessee coming to town next week. There's not a ton of great games scheduled for next week. Could you see Arkansas having game day come to Fayetteville for this matchup?
So, yeah, I've seen that swirling around all over social media and stuff too. Obviously, the last couple of times we've said things like that, we've found a way to lose against A&M. It's been like, well, there goes that opportunity completely. Because I think at one year we had Alabama coming to our house after we played A&M, and at that point we were like 4-0 going into A&M, and it was going to be a lock. But then things didn't go well. But anyways, I think it's possible. I will say I've got my doubts that the game day committee would pick us, considering they just were at Oklahoma for the Tennessee-Oklahoma game. Do you think they would give Tennessee another college game day game? Even though it's not at Tennessee, they're still, one of the participants in that game. Maybe. I don't know. I'd love to see it, but I think a lot of it will have to do, obviously, with the wins and losses around the country and what other teams have good matchups as well. There's not a ton to your point, but depending on who wins and who loses this week, it could turn a not so great matchup into maybe a little bit better matchup than we've seen. Kind of similar to how the South Carolina and LSU game turned into the college game day. I think it was 2 weeks ago. One that you wouldn't really anticipate to be, but just due to the fact that I think South Carolina had absolutely stomped the guts out of Kentucky the week prior, it set up that game to feel a little bit better. Ended up being a great game. I thought that was a really great game that South Carolina should have won, but it was close, really competitive, had a lot of hype going on in it. So they picked a good one, but I don't want to count our chickens before they hatch or anything like that. I would like to get through this game and win, and then I think that type of conversation can start, and maybe the fans can put some pressure on the College Game Day committee to pick us to come to. I think that time of the year will be 2 weekends potentially from now, or something along those lines. So Fayetteville could be just kind of on the brink of nice fall colors and things like that. It would be a really good time of year to be in Fayetteville. So maybe that'll have a little something to do with it too, but we got to win this game to have that conversation even happen. So don't want to look too far ahead, but I think that's something that could be on the table. It's just if the committee wants to have is that many Tennessee appearances on College Game Day.
That's true. If they have any bias, I mean, you'd have to look at how many Alabama appearances have been on game day as well.
Man, no kidding. Notre Dame, teams like that.
It's like, and ironically enough, the last time they were here, I believe it's 2016 when we played Tennessee. So, I mean, if you want to come full circle.
I don't think it was that soon. It was farther ago than 2016, if I remember right, wasn't it?
Or was it 2006?
I think it was 2006. I think that's right.
Yeah, it's been nearly, I think, 20 years.
Yeah.
I was about to say, while you're looking at real quick, other games that you have going on that week, just to look at other ranked teams that week, you have Boise State taking on Utah State, Penn State taking on UCLA, Michigan and Washington, USC, Minnesota, Clemson, Florida State, which probably would have been a good one if Florida State was actually as good as they're supposed to be this year. Baylor, Iowa State, Missouri, Texas A&M, SMU, Louisville, Ole Miss, South Carolina, so Miami, Cal. So there's not a ton, if you're looking at ranked matchups. So,
yeah, there's a lot of potential for it to happen. I think the stars are going to have to align perfectly. I'll say this. I mean, if we win this weekend, do we crack the top 25? That's to me, that's more of the question than.
Technically, you'd be knocking off a ranked Texas A&M team.
Exactly. So granted, I think they're 23rd or something like that. 24. Yeah. I don't know. With our only loss at that point, if we do find a way to win, we're obviously getting the cart before the horse here. If we find a way to win this game and win it maybe convincingly, especially, I think you got to look at this Arkansas team as we were just a sniff away from being 5-0 at this point with that Oklahoma State. Everybody saw that we were the better team in that game. And I don't want to play the Hugh Freeze here and say that we play them 9 times out of 10 and we win 9. That's not the case. I think we had a good matchup against them. That would have probably been a fairly good split if we're playing 10 times. But on that day, we were easily the better team that should have won that game if we did not have the absolute turnover debacles that we did. It's the exact same reason that Auburn just lost to us. I think they outgained us in yardage, not tremendously like we did against Oklahoma State, but I think they did outgain us, but we did find a way to win that game with their 5 turnovers. Obviously, they should have had a touchdown, going into the end zone there that Metcalf was able to strip the ball out. We talked about it a little earlier in the show, but that's a big swing right there, So things like that cost them a game just like it cost us a game against Oklahoma State. So you can what if yourself to death, but you do got to look at it kind of that way. In my opinion, if we do find a way to win this A&M game, that Arkansas was a sniff away from being 5-0 and being one of the better looking teams in the country. We're not perfect. We got a lot of things to improve on, but we found ways to play well at times and have decent offensive drives. Granted, we're not having great offensive drives every possession, but we've had some sparks where we've really looked good. So I don't know. You can play that what if game a lot, and it's fun to play, but sometimes it can be depressing when things don't go how you want them to when you play that what if game. But I will be curious to see what the decisions are if we do find a way to win this game. Come home 4-1 with a big matchup against a really
maybe at least get team. SEC Nation.
I think that's 100% the case. If we don't get game day, if we do win this game and it's Arkansas, Tennessee, there's some decent history there in the past. You think back to the 90s, the Burlsworth era, and we should have won some games there. anyways, that's a topic for another time. But there's some good history there. To your point, the last time game day was at Arkansas was in 2006. I think we were number 13 at the time, and Tennessee was number 11. So it'd be kind of ironic playing that same team 18 years later or whatever on game day. So I think that's a valid argument, though. If we don't get college game day, we bloody better get ACC Nation on site. And I think the Hill will be loud and proud if they're there as well. There's been a couple of games in the past where they've come to town, and it's always been a party. So I'd like to see at least some show, if you will, be on site if we are able to pull this game out against A&M.
Agreed. You look at it, Pigpen here's got some offensive ideas for the Hogs. Maybe we need to shoot this over to Bobby P. He said, hear him out. Since Broden forgot how to catch the ball, has some drop issues, take Broden out, put in Haas at the slot, and then you throw in a bigger tight end to block. You think maybe Washington, Varkey's Gums, or even, we haven't seen him too much, a Shamar Easter type guy.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about it earlier on in the show that Broden's been having some issues. I think the person you swap him with, he's already getting some time, but I think on those routes, I'm not sure exactly what position he is, if he's an X or a Z or whatever receiver. I think you pull him and put Tesla in. Tesla's not quite as big, doesn't have quite as long of arms, but I think from a route running, catching traffic, tough catches where you've got defenders on you that Broden's really been struggling with. Tesla has been notorious for making big plays in those scenarios. That's kind of somebody you need there. To me, I think where you have the biggest argument and the coaches are going to, make the decisions themselves. But I think chemistry and timing and all that's going to be a big factor too. You can tell that Broden and Green have good chemistry together. A lot of the throws that have been going his way have been on target. It's just Broden not hauling them in. So if they can correct that, that's probably an easier issue to correct, sort of, than offensive timing and efficiency between quarterback and receiver, where some of those things are maybe a little bit harder to get in sync on. And some of those things are probably more prone to have turnovers occur on. If a receiver runs the wrong route and you throw where he should be, it's across the middle and there's a safety behind there, where if your receiver was in time, that's their completion, but then it's a pick if he's not, and the throw is errant or something along those lines. So I can make an argument a lot of the ways on that. If Taylon's able to have good enough chemistry with some of the other receivers, I mean, do you throw, Monte Harrison or somebody like that out there instead, another bigger body guy? I don't know. I hate to pull playing time away from Broden because he's very explosive and has huge potential, especially in the red zone. But until you can trust him to catch every ball that's thrown his way, or at least the ones he should catch, maybe there's the argument for that. I completely agree. I've been very frustrated with some of the disappointing drops that have happened that should have been big plays that I thought Taylon threw the ball well. And so it skewed his completion percentage even lower than it should be, because he's made good throws on some of these that just haven't been completed. So I'm going to leave it to the coaches, because I could sit here and also play the what if game on that. Personally, to me, I think Tesla should get some more of those routes and snaps, but I don't know.
Bring back the stick'em for Tyrone Broden.
Something. We talked about it a little earlier too. The point here about playing Haas out there kind of in that slot, I think he could do it, but I think you handicap yourself with how good of a blocker he is on the line. That is half of his job. I know everybody wants to see him get more catches and more targets, and that hopefully will come. If you watch the games closely and key in on what he's doing on the line, he has been critical on a lot of these run plays that have gone for successes, on setting the edge and things like that. And then he's also been fairly critical on the little bit of pass protection we've had from time to time, chipping guys, things like that, and just holding his own on the line. That's one area where we have got to get better, is pass protection. And Haas, to me, is our best blocking tight end. He's probably your best catching tight end. He's easily your best tight end. I mean, let's be real here. So I hate to pull him out of that just to try to get him more touches in the receiving category, but then you give up the protection that he brings you, which is so valuable right now for Taylon. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, thinking about trying to play him in a different position.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, he's out there blocking, and like Pittman said, he's praised him for how well he's developed into a blocker, and we all want to see him have those dynamic plays like he showed flashes of last year, like he showed at Oklahoma State this year. And I think that time will come. I think as soon as, this offensive line, like Sam Pittman said, they will get it fixed. Hopefully that's the case. They get it fixed. Then I think you start seeing, more stats in the stat sheet for Luke Haas. So
Taylor needs a half a second longer on average. I mean, there's been some plays where he's had a clean pocket and it like barely breaks down and he just tucks and runs, where he probably should have just stepped up in the pocket and stayed in another second and a half, something like that, and probably would have been able to find somebody on that second, third read, where he's just kind of pulled out and ran around and sometimes made a good throw, sometimes just ran. I think what Petrino's going to try to develop him into, though, is more of a pocket style passer. As the protections get better, I think you'll see Talon get better, and you'll see a different side of his game more than just the 18 runs a game that he's kind of having to do right now just to keep us in ball games and just to have positive plays. I think that's kind of been the issue, is he understands that, look, I don't need to stand back here and take a sack, and I definitely, don't really want to just run around and then throw the ball away because I stayed in the pocket a little too long, and as I was trying to escape, somebody's on my heels, and I just got to chunk it. I need to go ahead and tuck and at least try to pick up 3, 4, 5 yards. And it's paid dividends. That he's half the reason we've won the games we have, is just his rushing ability and the yards he's been able to pick up and some of the big plays he's been able to rip off, when guys have missed tackles and he's juked dudes out of their shoes. He's great. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think that's exactly what Petrino wants from him long term. But the protection has got to get better for him to develop into that. So there's a symbiotic relationship there that's got to develop together. As that offensive line gets better, I think you'll see Talon's passing get better. It's going to happen together. And if you start to see one degrade, I think you'll see the other degrade. So hopefully those corrections can happen. I think a lot of it is guys getting healthier and staying healthy. Guys like Addison Nichols, for example, been battling an ankle. You're at the worst position ever to have a banged up ankle, where you're trying to cheat timing wise because you're having to snap the ball and then, be ready to take on your block. With a bummed up ankle, that's even harder. So somebody like that, if he can get healthier and healthier each week, I think that'll improve just the chemistry between these guys playing in games together. That's going to continuously help pass protections improve. And then what Sam was saying in the press conference, if you're in 5-man protection, or if you got a running back there and he's intentionally in 6-man protection, do you get the 6 fastest guy, or the 6 fastest guys, or the 6 guys that are closest to the quarterback as they're blitzing, as you're trying to pick up these, blitz type packages? We're missing on some of those where we're blocking the wrong guys, or we're accidentally doubling a guy when you shouldn't, because you go inside or something to try to pick up the guy that's right there coming on the center, and you miss a guy that's freely blitzing kind of around the edge or something. So some missed assignments, those have got to get corrected and get a little bit better at picking up those first 6, if you will. I thought Pittman had a great point about that, because that's what I've seen too. If we can get better there, it's not the fact that you hold your guys for forever. That can never be the expectation. But if you can give Talon literally a half a second longer to a full second, that's huge in quarterback play. That's all you need. It's just pick up one free blocker from here and there, free blitzer from here and there from time to time, have a little bit better protection on blocking those first 5 or 6 guys that are blitzing. And I think that's the difference in this passing game. Talon's shown that he can have accurate passes. He's just got to not be, in distress as the ball's coming out, and he's got to be on balance and on rhythm. So they've got to find a way to be able to get him those type of rhythm plays. And if, it's something we struggle with all year, I'd like to see more like play action, naked bootlegs, bring back some of the Brandon Allen things that he was good at. Because in my opinion, Talon has looked more accurate on the run from time to time than in the pocket. But I think it's just because his timing in the pocket, he's trying to rush because he's feeling the pressure. So got to get a couple things corrected there. I think it's possible. I think everybody knows what to correct, and I'm excited to see how we improve each game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that take. That's, I think that's all Taylor needs to kind of show what progress he's made on passing. Because, he even came out and said that was the big focus in the offseason was everybody knows he can run the ball. It was he wanted to focus on improving. And, like even Pittman said it, Talon looks at himself not as a quarterback that is a run first guy. He's a quarterback he views as a guy that can throw the ball, but also run if he needs to. So that's going to be interesting to see the development as it goes the rest of the season. But we'll see that as it progresses. But Saturday, as we get wrap up here, Arkansas will take on Texas A&M, 2:30 in the Southwest Classic, the last one in Jerry World for now, as this moves into a home-and-home series starting next year here in Fayetteville, as we will get the first of that true home-and-home series. And before we get out of here, of course, we've got to do our SEC Pick'em of the week. And that starts with Kentucky at number 6, Ole Miss. Ole Miss favored by 17.5. We saw Kentucky take that Georgia team to the brink. Do they have it in them again to, put up another tough fight against this Ole Miss team?
I think this will be a close first half, maybe. And then I think Ole Miss has just got too much offensive firepower for Kentucky's defense to play that to that level to stop them for 4 full quarters. And Lane's looking at this game, licking his chops. He wants to go up there and completely blow them out and say, "Hey, look what we did against them, Georgia. You couldn't do that." I guarantee you that's in Lane's brain right now. So, I honestly, I've got Ole Miss covering the spread on this one. I think they'll beat them by 3 scores. I really do. I hate that. I think Kentucky's decent, and I think their defense is sneaky good, but I think this Ole Miss offense is a notch above most, and I think they're going to have a tough time hanging with them for 4 quarters.
I can see that as well. You look at what Jackson Dart's done so far this season. You got him and Trey Harris. Both are the leaders in passing and receiving yards in the SEC, and that's for a reason. They've been out there just, slinging it, playing, passing, catch all season long, and I think that continues here. And I'm like you. I think they cover the spread in this game.
Granted, this is easily the toughest defense Ole Miss has faced. They've kind of played some cupcakes so far, in my opinion, but they've done what they're supposed to against the cupcakes. I think you'll still see the success against Kentucky. I don't think they're going to beat them by 50 like they beat some of these other teams, but 2 or 3 scores is I think definitely doable for them.
Yeah. You move on. Number 21, Oklahoma heads to Jordan-Hare, where we just left with the victory. OU is only favored by 2.5, and I think that's probably due to a quarterback change in Norman. As we saw Jackson Arnold struggle last week against Tennessee. They had a great defensive game plan coming in, limiting that Tennessee offense to only 25 points. If they had better quarterback play, that probably would have been a lot closer game. I think Oklahoma comes in here and wins this game. They got a really good defense if they can figure out some things offensively. This Auburn team is just bad, man. We saw that last week, and we even the guys from the Up Tempo podcast told us last week they know that they're bad, and everybody said it. There's a glaring quarterback problem, and Freeze didn't go out and address it in the transfer portal. So it might be a rough season down there, and for the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, here's the thing about Jordan-Hare is it's always crazy. So there's some weird voodoo in that stadium that could get them wins or give them losses. You never know. I think this past weekend it gave them a loss with just the fluke type interceptions that were happening for them. Granted, the quarterbacks are not good. I will be frank about it. They're just not. But that Auburn team isn't terrible. They've got some good players here and there. Are they able to keep it close with Oklahoma and find a way to, if they can force a couple turnovers, sneak one potentially? I do think Oklahoma will win this game just on their defense alone. I don't think Auburn's going to be able to run the ball too well. And if they can't run the ball too well, they're going to have a really rough day, kind of similar to what they had against us. So I think Oklahoma's probably got a better defense than we do. And so they might be able to even hinder them even more. The offense on both teams is going to be ugly. I think it's going to be a kind of a similar game to how we were. Our offense had spurts of greatness, but then a lot of ugly plays too. I think that's exactly what you're going to see here. Oklahoma's trying to find their identity on offense too. So I expect a kind of an ugly game again down there at Jordan-Hare, very similar to how ours was against them. Yeah, Oklahoma will win though.
Yeah, I think so too. This next one will take maybe 2 seconds to talk about. You've got Mississippi State going into Austin. Spread's 39.5. Probably will be more. I think the only real talking point of this game is who's starting for Texas. Is Arch Manning getting another starter under his belt, and Quinn Ewers getting another week of rest before, more SEC play, or is Quinn Ewers back ready to get back in the driver's seat for this Texas team?
Honestly, this is a game where I think if Quinn is healthy enough, you could see a healthy amount of both of them. Quinn, obviously if he's healthy, he'll probably get the start. But my gosh, man, you play him a quarter just to kind of give him some more game reps to get him, back into shape. You don't want him to be completely cold, the next time he comes in against a good team. So I could see this as almost like a tune-up game. If he's healthy, get him a quarter or two at most, and then let Arch Manning finish things out. Golly, man, I'm going to be real. They could put a 0 up on Mississippi State. They could blank them. Mississippi State's offense is absolutely dog water. They're bad, and I think Texas is going to just beat the brakes off of them. So I feel bad for Mississippi State this year. They're having a really, really tough time. So Texas is going to win this one big.
Yeah. One I'm circling that could be a sneaky good game. South Alabama at number 14 LSU. You've seen what South Alabama's done the past few weeks. The LSU's favored by 22 in this game. I could see them not covering here depending on which kind of version of that South Alabama team shows up. They had a bad week 1, but they came out these past 2 weeks and just kind of absolutely been an offensive juggernaut.
Yeah, 100%. They're always fairly good. They find a way to win games they shouldn't. It seems like year in and year out, and this could be one of those. I think if you're LSU, you understand that, though, and probably aren't overlooking these guys. I don't know if that 22 points is right. It feels like a little much to me as well, especially some of the struggles that LSU has had. They've had good moments and then bad moments. It's been kind of a roller coaster ride for them, too. Having them lose Harold Perkins is huge. He was definitely the leader on their defense in my mind. I think that's going to be somebody that's irreplaceable. But I still think LSU will win this game, barring just a fall apart where they have several turnovers and allow South Alabama to hang around. I don't know if they cover, though. I think it's more of like a 14-point win, not a 22-point win.
Yeah, I think you're right there. You just don't want LSU to be the Oklahoma State from last year where South Alabama comes into your home stadium and just beats you. So I think you're probably right. I think LSU probably gets it done here. I don't know if I'm for sure on the 22. Like you said, I could see maybe 14, 17 in that area, depending on which South Alabama team shows up. Finally, one of the, if not the biggest, one of the biggest college football games this season. You still got Texas involved with one of these teams coming on later in the season. Number 2 at Georgia, heading to Bryant-Denny Stadium to play number 4 Alabama. Georgia favored by 2 in the new era Alabama Crimson Tide with Kalen DeBoer at the helm. This is going to be a good game. Both these teams coming off a bye week. Georgia coming off a tough matchup against Kentucky where they're lucky to get out of there with that win. Alabama coming off a win against Wisconsin. I think Georgia's going to be looking to bounce back and, not have a repeat performance. But, man, what a big-time matchup for Saturday.
Here's the thing. They can't afford a repeat performance. Alabama will whip them if they play the same way they did against Kentucky. Grant, you got to give Kentucky credit. Their defense played well and forced Georgia to be uncomfortable the entirety of that game. And Alabama's got a good defense, too, that has the capacity to do that. But a lot of it was Georgia's self-inflicted wounds and them just not playing clean. So if you give them 2 weeks to prepare, but on the flip side, you give Alabama 2 weeks to prepare. This is liable to be an absolute slugfest. I don't know if it'll be an offensive slugfest. It's got the potential in my mind to be a defensive slugfest where points might be hard to come by. I don't know, man. To me, this game has significant playoff potential, resonating behind it. Even though it is a 12-team playoff now and either team can afford to lose this game and still get into the playoff, that's kind of the cool thing. Whereas in years prior, it had a little bit more I don't really know the right term. It meant a little bit more maybe. This game still means an absolute ton. These are teams that could meet up again in Atlanta. Obviously, Texas is going to be in that mix too. But, truly, I mean, you're looking at some of the best teams in the country here. I don't know who to pick. I'm not going to lie. If Alabama continues what they did against Wisconsin, who's not terrible, Alabama beat the brakes off of them, looked phenomenal. It looks like they're really hitting their stride at the right time. Milroe looks great. I mean, they just look good. Georgia looked bad against Kentucky, but here's the thing. Georgia is such a complete team. You know they're going to bounce back. I mean, and this type of game just has them written all over it where they're going to play one of their best games of the year. It seems like they always play their best when they play the best opponent, if you will, you know. So I think I want to pick Georgia, but dude, I don't know. Georgia might win and still might not cover the spread. It might be like a 1-point win. I don't know. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah, I'm along with you. You know, on Saturday Showdown earlier this week, another variety sports show where we talk all things college football in general. Here's my stance. I'm going with the Dogs in this one. I think you got to go with Georgia until somebody can knock them off. Yes, they're number 2, but that's not because they've lost. They struggled. Texas has looked convincing this year. But if Georgia gets through this one, I think they're right. They might jump Texas depending on, you know, do they come in here and just handle Bama and get the job done? If it's a close win, those two teams could be flip-flopping all season. But then if Georgia gets the win here, I am 100% circling October 19th, and we'll be watching. That's would be, I feel like, the most watched college football game of the entire season when Georgia goes to Austin to take on Texas. So, you know, there's a lot of things riding on this game.
Yeah, 100%. This is obviously the biggest matchup of the week by far. I mean, there is significant implications. It's going to be a good matchup, going to be a good game. To your point, though, I think if one team was going to really handle the other, I think it would be Georgia handling Alabama. So I think Georgia has the edge. I just don't know if they're going to do that or not. You know, that's Alabama team's not bad either, but also you don't have Nick Saban coaching, so who knows? I'm excited to see where this goes, and to your point, see what the implications are after this game when these teams take on Texas and stuff. So the SEC's fun. I was a little bit scared at first, but like adding Texas to the mix has almost just made it more fun. Just with some of the matchups that can happen that mean a lot just for the SEC title game type conversations as well as playoff conversations. Texas is good at the right time. Let's be real. A couple years ago, you throw them in the SEC and they'd be lucky to get a bowl. But Sark has them in a good spot, and they are phenomenal right now, which unfortunate for the rest of the SEC, but at the same time, kind of fortunate for the SEC in the fact that if they do make it all the way and win the Natty or something, it's another one for the SEC. So I don't know. It makes college football a good time, and a lot of these games mean a lot. And to your point, you know, if Georgia just absolutely curb stomps Bama somehow in this game and Carson Beck throws for 400 yards, I mean, I think you got to maybe flip them back in that number 1 spot. I don't know, though. It's kind of Texas is the loser right now. So those are fun conversations to have, and I think it makes college football exciting compared to the last couple of years when it's just been like Georgia and then everybody else.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot here, though. Are you going to take Georgia? Or are you going to take Bama?
Sorry, I need to have a pick. I'm picking
Georgia.
Tough,
I know.
I am going to pick Georgia. I think they have the more experienced and more complete team. This is going to be a close one, though. I really don't see Georgia blowing them out. I don't see Alabama beating Georgia badly either. So I think it's Georgia. I think it's a 20-24 type game. I don't think it's going to be huge over, inflated scoring. It's going to be a tight one, but I got Georgia winning it.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, if you're DeBoer, though, you're circling this and saying, hey, here's a chance to make my name as the next potential great
100%.
coach at Alabama. Jeremiah here says, he's hitting on something we talked about last week. If we do beat A&M next week, referring to Arkansas, Tennessee, it could be the only ranked matchup if we do beat A&M, and he thinks game day will be in favor, but we most likely lose to Tennessee.
1,000%. I'm manifesting it right now. We're going to find a way to squeak out the win at A&M, and then there's going to be some hard conversations around college game day coming to Fayetteville. I think there's a ton of argument for that to be had. Even if they don't, I definitely think SEC can't remember the name.
Nation.
SEC Nation needs to come for sure. That's not even a question in my mind. But one of those two things needs to happen. And then, yeah, Tennessee most likely beats us at home. If there is some crazy, miraculous like uptick in this offense, we've got a chance to compete with Tennessee if it comes to that. So I'd like to see some big corrections made in our pass protection to where we do compete with a big boy like Tennessee and really shock the world. Even if we don't win, if we play them really, really close and put up, it's a 40-45 type game, whether we beat Texas A&M or not, we're going to play Tennessee anyways. That's a great opportunity to show, hey, we can really play with the big boys offensively and defensively, if we can really play a clean game. That's what it's going to come down to. We've made way too many mistakes in all of our matchups so far. So find a way to play cleaner ball, and you're going to be able to compete with these big teams. I think the talent we have is there. Just got to play a little bit better. I like that comment right there. They're not going to be ranked much longer. I agree.
Yeah, I was about to say I couldn't agree with this comment much more. I think they've been overrated all season, and I think they've gotten exposed a little bit. But we'll see going this weekend. Like Seth said, manifesting it, we're going to go down to Jerry World in that series with the W and come back home to play Tennessee. Before we get out of here, the sports schedule for over this weekend, we've got, like I said earlier, soccer on the road taking on Vanderbilt in Nashville tomorrow at 7 p.m. You've got softball playing some fall ball tomorrow as well at 6 p.m. taking on Seminole State. You've got, of course, the football matchup down in Dallas playing Texas A&M. You come back home, volleyball plays Ole Miss, and you also have on Sunday as well soccer taking on number 23 South Carolina, so a ranked matchup for an SEC home matchup going into next week before we're back here with you guys. And, I'm heading down. I'm hopeful for, the last time I went down to A&M, we won back in, I believe it was 21. The last time we beat them, we had a couple of rough seasons. But like Jeremiah says, I think Bobby gets this, offense running on all cylinders. And we start seeing some, this, Bobby Petrino offense that we've expected once he decided he was coming back to Arkansas.
Train's coming, man. I think it's going to happen. It may take a couple more games to really get to full speed, but they've got to make a couple corrections on pass protection and give Taylor just a touch more time. And then I think you're going to start seeing a little bit more connection between him and these receivers. And this offense is going to be really tough to stop with the run game plus him passing the ball better. So fingers crossed. Bobby's coming, man.
100%. We'll leave it at that. We'll be back this weekend at some point with our recap show after the game, hopefully talking about a win. And then we'll be back here next Wednesday to preview our matchup at home with the Tennessee Volunteers. Until then, have a good weekend rooting on the Hogs, and we'll see you next time.